You got him?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, hello and welcome back to the Future of American Politics podcast made by me. And today I have the reoccurring guest of Nelson Order and another guest, John Munnett from the. Oh, and so I'll let you two introduce yourselves, and then we can see if those libertarians will ever join.
Sure. Nelson, I'll go first. So, hi, everyone. I'm John Munitz. I am the president of the Hill of Roses Network. We are a political organization as well as a political media network. And so I run a program that comes out, weekly, producing shows, whether they're interviews or commentary, as well as leading this network on, the goal of universal basic income, universal basic services, and government
Yes, and I'm Nelson Orta. I am the VP of editing at the Hill of Roses, in charge of editing articles and leading the writers to, write their articles. And John and I agree on many things, but one of my favorite pastimes is disagreeing with John.
Oh, I hope we can do that this stream. And I'm Grayson. I was with the Hill of Roses, but then I got fired for reasons we won't get into on this stream.
Good.
Still, though, totally worth it in my opinion. Still,
Out of principle.
So I guess I was going to talk about the Georgia special elections first. I mean, because those are like the things that are going to become important first, because that's happening in like January. So again, I'll let Nelson go first this time and give their opinions on the Georgia special election. Then I guess I'll give mine.
Well, first of all, the Democrats messed up by spending too much money on races that should have won but did not, and they only really picked up 2 seats, Arizona and Colorado, both swing states this election. And they pretty much lost everything else except for Georgia, which actually has a runoff, which gives them a second chance. And what they would have to do is get the voters out. So they have to get the Georgia voters excited for John Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock. Now, the interesting thing about Reverend Raphael Warnock is that, and if I'm not mistaken, he would be the 11th black senator ever. And that by itself is historical. And I need to double check, but I think he might even be the first black senator from the state of Georgia. I need to double check on that, I'm not sure. John Ossoff ran a very, very close race where he came just under 2 points shy of defeating Senator David Perdue. And he actually has a chance to win as long as he gets the vote out. Reverend Raphael Warnock, on the other hand, was in a special election in a crowded race with over a dozen candidates, Democrats, Republicans included, independents too. And there were 2 competitive Republicans running against each other. The incumbent, Kelly Loeffler, and also Republican Representative Doug Collins, who is backed by Donald Trump. But both of their combined votes definitely outpaced Warnock's during the special election. So I think that each race actually, reinforces the other on both sides, the Democrats and the Republicans.
Yeah, I guess the only things that I would like to add on to what Nelson said is that I am purely, wanting to endorse these races, not necessarily because I think they're the utmost of character for representing the agenda we want, but more so there's a power of just the dynamics of the Senate. So as Nelson mentioned, we were able to swing 2 seats. We lost 1 seat. So far, we've had a net gain of +1, but we needed a net gain of +3 to make the Senate even and allow the VP to be the tiebreaker vote. And so we need those seats purely for those grounds. And both are starting as underdog stories, as Nelson alluded to. I would say, on top of that, there have been certain people who, held their noses, are a little bit more conservative, but they voted for Joe Biden because they dislike Donald Trump. And they now feel like they want to, hamper it a little bit and force bipartisanship by splitting Congress and keeping the Senate Republican. To those people, I would say, look at the characters of the two people in Georgia. You might have said that you just like Donald Trump on a character level. Well, the two people there are both felons. Now, a lot of people may forget this story because it happened all the way back in like March, maybe even late February. But there was a whole insider trading scandal in Congress where people who were part of the Senate who had classified information started making trades on their portfolios related to an expected crash coming in the market because of the coronavirus. 2 of the 4 senators indicted in that process are the 2 senators in Georgia, David Perdue as well as Kelly Loeffler. And so if you want people who are tens of millions in wealth and are still abusing the power of their office, okay, split your attention between the Senate and the presidency, vote Republican in the Senate. But if you actually care about character and that's actually a consistent principle for you, send those people to the curb. Let's have a 50-50 Senate. They'll be forced to be bipartisan that way anyway.
Well, I'm going to play a little bit of a devil's advocate. I believe it was, didn't the Senate Ethics Committee rule that there wasn't enough evidence or something? I read that somewhere where the Senate Ethics Committee technically didn't say there was any real evidence of wrongdoing, but that's kind of besides the point. I just think, because I am technically a Republican, I would say that we screwed up sort of picking the nominee to go up against Warnock. Lafayette is it would be a lot easier to get Doug Collins in the Senate than it would be to get Lafayette because he doesn't have the insider trading controversy. And he would probably be, and it'd be more likely for people to vote Collins over Lafayette. I mean, so we shot ourselves in the foot there. I mean, we do shoot ourselves in the foot because, I mean, to explain what I mean, sometimes we put focus on races that weren't really that close, but like we put, I think it was like $70 million into Lindsey Graham. Turned out he was actually safe the whole time. But I guess you could say that was a Harrison thing that he did, but
I mean, counterpoint, if he doesn't have the $70 million, is he as safe?
maybe. But interesting fact, I don't know if you've heard of this, but in New Mexico, the Republican nominee, Mark Ronchetti, actually got closer than the Democrat in Iowa and Maine, and he only got $3 million. So imagine if we actually put money into Mark Ronchetti's campaign. Not saying it would have happened, but it could have went red if he had more of the money.
I mean, we
Maybe.
could play the woulda coulda game all day. I mean, the Democrats have a similar situation where we burned tens of millions on a race against the Grim Reaper himself in Kentucky and turned out to get a shellacking of nearly 20 points. Not that I'm going to say Charles Booker would have won, but he would have been closer. And it would have been great to see what a well-financed Booker campaign could have looked like because during the primary, he had somewhere between a 41 to 52 ratio of money compared to McGrath, and he was a few percentage points away from beating her. So, yeah, I think we could play that game all day of we should have had more strategic financing of different races, but I think fundamentally a lot of it is going to just come down to macro factors like the pandemic as well as the lack of stimulus to help people during those last 6 months of the election.
Okay. Also, I got a message from the Politicrat. He'll be coming on in a few minutes, so we'll get like another sort of right-wing person on to make this thing a little more balanced. He's an interesting character. I think you'll like him, but I think we talked about Georgia. We kind of put in enough of Georgia, but I actually have something interesting to show if I can somehow this is a trend map of how every county trended in 2020. As you can see, there weren't too many drastic changes, except in like Colorado, South Texas, Miami-Dade. I just wanted to bring this up to see what the map is roughly looking like. Up there's my county. Yeah. I do think it was interesting South Texas went so red.
I mean, one would have to wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that they're a border community in general.
Yeah. I think I don't know what it was specifically that Trump did to get the Hispanics in South Texas to vote for him in big numbers. Maybe they actually do like, maybe my theory is that they do like border security, but it could also have just been that Trump was a little more populist in the more recent administration, so maybe that helped a little too.
There was a wonderful film. I can't remember what year it's from. It's called Lone Star, directed by a guy named John Sayles, and it featured Matthew McConaughey, Chris Cooper, and I can't remember who else. It was an excellent film, and it was all about Texas. And then you had, this cop character, you had Mexican American characters, Black characters, Native American characters. And there's this one scene in particular when there was this upper class Mexican American woman who is sitting in her backyard, and then she has this encounter with illegal, or rather undocumented immigrants. And the point that the professor made when we were watching it in film class was that even though that she had been herself, Mexican American, there was a lot of antipathy towards, undocumented immigrants, even coming from a Mexican American perspective. So that's not exactly surprising. Then if you even go back to 2004, George W. Bush himself actually won a fair amount of the Mexican American vote. So,
well, he was also the Texas. That probably
Texas governor, yeah.
But I still think it's kind of surprising that was the best Republican showing since 1988 was with George Bush.
Yeah.
I can't ignore that.
I mean, I think a little bit of it is less what the Trump team did and more what the Biden team did.
Yeah.
They didn't actually put effort into trying to do Latino outreach. Like, I had seen several articles that specifically said that Latinos are not part of the game plan for how they think they were going to win the election. And so I think when you have a base that does tend to have a little bit more often some conservative values, because the Hispanic community tends to be, a little bit more often religious in nature, that breeds a little conservatism. And when they're not trying to speak to their needs, and immigration was not necessarily as big of a story this year as it was during the 2016 election cycle. I mean, Donald Trump was certainly known back then for the build the wall rhetoric. This year, it was a lot more just law and order rather than specific immigration rhetoric about it. So I think that had a big contributing factor.
That and the Democrats weren't knocking on doors.
That too.
The Republicans were.
Yeah.
This was a trend that actually happened in a lot of places. Like, obviously, Miami-Dade, from what I hear, the Cuban American vote really went for Trump this time around. And in Georgia, I saw an interesting thing. I don't know if I can bring it up, but it actually showed that the two places in Georgia that trended red, there were two types of counties: Hispanic counties and Black counties that blacks made up over 80% of the population. Those were the two only areas in Georgia that trended red, surprisingly.
It's interesting to know. Yeah, I mean, look at Joe Biden's performance across the board. He did worse in every category except for white men. And so, yeah, I don't doubt that he started to underperform in some of the districts that were a little bit more Hispanic compared to historical, trends.
So, I don't know if exit polls were the most accurate. I have heard from both sides that they could be pretty bad sometimes, but well, they did show some interesting things. Like as you said, it was mostly white men that put Biden over the field. But with some, I mean, there's also the sort of forgotten demographic of the Asian Americans. They also trended towards Trump, and this was
Yeah.
even with the China virus thing that happened.
I mean, if you actually look at a breakdown of the Asian vote, you'll actually note like they're not a monolith. There's a lot of different cultures within the Asian American community. You are right. Most Asian Americans started to trend to Trump this election cycle, but the one group that didn't, and in fact had a big decrease and voted for Democrats more often, were the Chinese. So
Yeah.
the China virus rhetoric certainly had an impact. It just, people might have extrapolated a little further, saying that would hurt him with all Asian groups when it didn't, and it just hurt him with the specific Asian group, which were the Chinese Americans.
Apparently, I also think it was the Vietnamese Americans were the ones where he actually trended the most well with.
I think you might be right there. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and well, maybe the McCain attack has probably switched someone's opinion.
Who knows?
Well, those McCain attack ads didn't exactly win him Arizona, though.
Yeah.
And there are probably like at least 10,000 Republicans who would have voted for Trump. At least this is my opinion. Who would have voted for Trump but went for Biden instead, if anything, because of the attacks on John McCain.
There could have literally been 1,000 ways both sides could have done better.
Oh yeah.
Like maybe Trump should have just saw Michigan as a lost cause. Let's try and get Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. We'll go 2 to 4 instead of all 4 at once.
Maybe so. But this time around, Biden is looking to get like plus 150,000 votes in Michigan, and Trump 4 years ago was much tighter. And I think right now Pennsylvania is around plus 87,000, give or take, for Biden, and that's more than double what Trump got 4 years ago. So
I know Wisconsin though was still like crazy close. So
it was.
I think like in the future, the political leanings are going to be Wisconsin, swing state, Michigan, likely not lean D, Pennsylvania, tilt D, and then like Georgia, Arizona, swing. That's probably
more than likely. And even Texas, like from what I need to see the numbers again, but John Cornyn did better in Texas than Donald Trump did.
Yeah. It certainly seems like the Democrat strategy is just let's win the coast, and then the northern part of the middle of America will be swing area that we'll focus on, because we've been able to expand our coastal reach now, securing Georgia, only being less than 1% away from securing North Carolina even.
Yeah.
I know we lost Florida, but it wasn't an absolute rout. It was certainly a decisive victory for Trump, but it's not like it's not competitive like Ohio is now starting to become and Iowa is starting to become. There's definitely competitive advantages, and we started to expand on the West Coast too. I don't know if you count it as the coast technically because it's not water adjacent, but if you count the coast as
I would count that as Southwest.
Arizona,
if you're looking at Nevada and Arizona and all that,
yeah,
I would call it Southwest.
It certainly seems like that is the Democratic base, is these coastal groups, which is unfortunate in my opinion, because I think there is a lot more potential, especially in some of these southern states, to be able to make some ground, just because they have higher black populations, and we should be able to start rallying that. Like, we got that one surprise win in 2018 for the Senate race for Alabama. I think we can
I'm
start doing that
17.
more often.
going to have to interrupt you to introduce the new guest, the Politicrat.
Hi,
Yo.
I am Speed.
Why don't I'll let you introduce yourself, then we
No.
get on to the midterms.
Yeah, I'm the Politicrat. I'm a 12th tier academic agent. That's about it. Normally, I have a much longer. I don't know. How do we do introductions on your stream?
The same way we do it on your channel.
Oh yeah, I'm just the Politicrat. I talk about politics, philosophy, bunch of stuff. Sometimes religion. Yeah, I have a Twitter channel. It's the Politicrat, but my old Twitter account got banned because I insulted the Chinese foreign minister and called him Mushu. And so now my new one is the Politicrat, but instead of a lowercase L, it's a capital I. So that's how I got around that. And I have a YouTube channel, also the Politicrat, but with an actual lowercase L. And it's The Wanderer over a Sea of Fog painting. I'm only at 128 subscribers, but I'm trying to build up.
Okay. Well, anyway, now with that out of the way, I was going to go to the 2022 midterm elections because it looks like that usually when midterms are usually bad for the party whoever owns the presidency.
Mm-hmm.
I'd agree. Actually, yeah, yep.
Were you
I'd
about
agree.
to say something?
No. I was about to somewhat disagree, but then I thought about it. I'm like, no, yeah, you're completely right. Trend show, like you think of the Tea Party wave back in 2010, and then you think about the Blue wave back in 2018. So,
And also, there was a Tea Party wave in 2014 and the Blue wave in 2006 too.
was there a Tea Party? Wait, 2014 wasn't the actual Tea Party though. It was the.
But there were a lot of re-elections on governors, Tea Party governors.
Wasn't it mostly by that point just neocons pretending to be fiscal conservatives?
No, there were a lot of Tea Party Republicans who were running for governor and things like that. Like they made a resurgence in 2014, but the one exception is 2002, which was the first election after 9/11 when the Republicans won. Seats both in the House and the Senate.
Bush was surprisingly popular very early on.
Very early on, yeah.
I do think he didn't handle 9/11 terribly. I'll give him that one thing.
Yeah, I think like with 9/11, I think it was just an overall government failure.
Yeah. And if you're Alex Jones, it's the government's fault.
Yeah. But anyway, even like in 1994 with the Republican Revolution, that with like Newt Gingrich, that was. But I'm going to do another screen share of a map, and this is from the New York Times. This is how the election played out in the House. Right now, it's at 205 to 222, and you can kind of see most of the flips that happened were we kind of saw coming, except for maybe like Florida. But like we knew like these two were going to flip in North Carolina and Georgia 7th, and New Mexico 2nd, Minnesota 7th.
Just a quick question. What's the link to the YouTube?
I'll go bring that to you.
Nice, thanks.
But I mean, there were some pretty surprises, especially in like Texas, where Tony Gonzalez actually won by 4 when it was actually considered to be one of the guaranteed flips for the Democrats. I mean, I think Texas was like a surprise good for like Republican incumbents. I mean, and there were actually some closer races, like Texas 15 was within 3, and Texas 7 was within 3. I think this one was within 6, and then like the districts that they were hoping to flip, like Chip Roy, got like 6.67, and Michael McCall, John Carter with like 9. But moving that aside, I was hoping we could talk about what do you think the 2022 Republicans and Democrats, how do you think they are going to play out? I'll let anyone who wants to go first start off with that.
Well, I think on the Democratic side in the House, I think we may see incumbents lose in 2022. There is no threat of Trump. There is no presidential election. There's a possible resurgence in blue districts against incumbent Democrats from more progressive candidates.
It all depends how the economy and how America as a whole is like. Say Biden was like the biggest screw up imaginable. Like we didn't even expect him to be that bad. Then I think Republicans would be in a very good shape. But if Biden was a lot better, I think they could be in a little shaky ground.
What is astonishing is that in this election, this is the highest percentage of eligible voters voting since 1900. And back then, that was prior to women having the right to vote, and also this is prior to the Civil Rights Voting Act. And this is like the biggest election literally ever in terms of percentage and in terms of raw number of voters. And yet you are correct, this was a disaster in the sense that the Democrats should have actually won a lot more Senate seats.
Well, the predictions said that they would.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then I think honestly at this point, just after the results, I don't think that this election was a referendum against the Republicans. It was a referendum against Donald Trump's character.
I would agree.
Because the thing is, I mean, there's a reason. Like some people I know, lifelong Republicans, they voted for Biden and then straight red, because because they saw Biden as just a better representation of the country, even though they disagree with him some of his more left wing policies or center left policies, because I wouldn't call him a leftist, but yeah, and I personally, I'll say for the House of Representatives, I voted Republican. For the Senate, I voted Democrat because he's a more like blue dog, and I like him.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it was a referendum on Trump's character.
Yeah, and to expand on that just a little bit, I think it also goes to show you what Joe Biden's strategy was too. He was certainly playing up that you can have decent Republicans and that he welcomed them into his coalition. And so maybe that did win him some Republican votes, at the top of the ticket. But then it convinced people that, Trump's not emblematic of the Republican Party. And so therefore, it's kind of like you've been given permission to vote Republican down ballot. And so I think that's totally going to be part of the reason why we underperformed, is because we didn't actually make an effort to try and turn out our base specifically. We tried to do that conversion style of strategy. And to your point about 2022, kind of looking forward, I largely see that we're going to probably have the House tighten up, but I actually think we're going to be a little bit even more competitive as Democrats in the Senate. When you look at the races that are up in 2022, 20 out of the 34 races are Republican incumbents. So that's already advantaged Democrats. They have more people who are up for challenge. And then B, we also have the fact that Puerto Rico this past election cycle approved a referendum wanting to apply for statehood. And so they're going to begin that process of applying for statehood. And if so successful, potentially with maybe Murkowski or Collins vote flipping, or if we do win both Georgia Senate seats, the tiebreaker vote of Kamala Harris, we will have Puerto Rico potentially admitted as a state into the union. And, they certainly have had experience potentially electing Republicans. I think they had a governor at one point who was a Republican, but largely the state is Democratic. And so you could easily see that being 2 more seats for Democrats potentially. So I think we'll be actually in a better spot in 2022 for the Senate. And I think we'll be in a slightly worse spot in the House.
Well, my thing is, what was I about to say? Oh yeah, even if Democrats do get 50-50 House seat, there is one thing that would probably fuck it up completely, and that would be if Biden picks Warren or like Sanders or any other Democrat that would follow under this specific category.
He's
That
not
would
gonna.
be-
He's not gonna pick. Maybe Warren, but I don't see him picking Sanders because the thing is, I mean, Sanders is gonna try to shill for a position, but then they're gonna the establishment's gonna kind of pretend just for the sake of like pomp and circumstance are gonna pretend to entertain it, and then he's basically gonna get cucked by a neoliberal in the Department of Labor.
It's not going to happen. They're senators. They're just not going to risk it. Both states have Republican governors.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
thing that I was going to bring up. That
And the only at this point, the only reason Sanders keeps getting reelected is name recognition.
Yep.
That's it. He's all misinformed voter. Like,
I don't know about that. I mean, he has the highest, favorability ratings with his constituency. His constituents like him, and I don't want to call them misinformed.
but is it for the policies, or do they just like him as a person? I don't know.
I think it's both.
It
I
could
don't
be
know.
all of the above.
I don't know. I guess I'm a bit like completely black-pilled when it comes to the competency of voters. So maybe even a little too much, honestly. Like, I mean, yeah, I'm not like anti-democracy, but I don't necessarily trust the so-called wisdom of crowds.
I'm a little bit more faithful in that.
if you really want to get someone who's really anti-democratic, we could just get Outramo out here and then
So I was about to say Outramer or Chicago liberal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we have a real fun stream. But
yeah,
again, though, there is actually one of those things that tends to get neglected because it's not part of the trifecta. What do you call it? Trifecta of government, and that would be the state governments. And that is that in 20. Where was I going with that? In 2022, you will have a lot of Democrat governors in Kansas up for re-election, and that could be bad for them depending on what happens. Because I would say the Democrat governor of Kansas is probably not going to win because of she won last time because Kobach was a bit too radical for Kansas, and so.
Mm-hmm. Just a quick question: do you know if Alcazar's coming?
He said he said he was having an assignment and that he might come.
Yeah, that's Alcazar. He always does that.
Oh.
And then he always ends up becoming my co-host when I'm on my stream. So.
Yeah. Anyway, but getting back to the state legislative argument, what do you all three think about? Where do you think that's going to swing in 2022?
Probably Republican, honestly. Moderate Republican. I think it's going to be a revolution of the moderates.
Actually, I don't doubt you on that. A resurgence of Republican moderates.
Yep, I think it's going to be like the K6 and the Romneys. Hopefully not the neocons, in my opinion, but I can see that. Maybe Nikki Haley. I see Nikki Haley as a bit of a rising star in the Republican Party right now. And a lot of people, both the anti-Trumpers and the Trumpers, seem to like her.
You know what? There have been calls for Lindsey Graham to resign.
Fuck Lindsey Graham. I hate Lindsey Graham.
After what he allegedly had done, which was, asking the Georgia Secretary of State to throw out ballots or something like that,
Did he do that? Are you serious?
Yeah, that's what he was alleged to do. And if there really is any truth to that, he should just outright resign and just give up politics. And then if he were to resign, I wouldn't be surprised if Nikki Haley would become the new senator from South Carolina.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Honest.
Yeah. I'd rather see her as senator than as president, in my opinion. Really. Because the thing is, because at least she would not, because she's super hawkish, and I'm not a hawk. But I think she would be. She'd probably be a good senator. I just don't think she'd be a great president. However, I'm not saying Nikki Haley specifically, so I guess I might be going off on a bit of a tangent here. But I just have this strange feeling, and it's super ironic, that our first female president is going to be a Republican.
Maybe.
It's just this weird premonition I have. It's going to be a Republican.
I just don't want Nikki Haley because, my God, if that's a nominee, I'll vote anyone else. I'll even vote Dan Crenshaw.
I don't hate Crenshaw, honestly. I mean,
Yeah, he's okay, actually.
yeah, I think he's bad on foreign policy, but at least he was in the military. At least he had the balls to go to war, unlike a
Yeah.
hawk like Lindsey Graham. So I think he has more. Yeah. Plus,
And the eye patch.
he's oh yeah, he looks like a badass. He's basically eye patch. No, he's basically John, like the new John McCain. I feel like he's going to be the next John McCain,
Probably.
but maybe a little less pro torture. I mean, not less pro torture, a little less pro invade absolutely everywhere. Because John McCain was the contention, which yeah.
But what do you? Okay, we were talking about the Republicans. Maybe I'll let the two progressives give their view on like the future of the Democrat Party because that's the one you two are probably hoping to kind of overtake.
Sure. Nelson, I'll start here. So to the future, I think the first part of your question was regarding state houses.
Yeah.
I largely think they're going to kind of be in a similar state. I think we saw in this election pretty much a run of the board. Like for the most part, I think all the incumbents won. I could see maybe like a minor shift towards Republicans. Largely, I think it's going to be dependent on the performance of the Biden administration. But to your overall point about like rising stars in the party, I mean, obviously you're going to have Kamala be the front runner for 2024 as being attached to the Biden administration. But then, I mean, there's clearly some people waiting in the wings. You have probably most likely, and I'm also kind of looking at betting markets for this, the most likely that aren't like Kamala Harris are Pete Buttigieg and Andrew Yang to potentially challenge Kamala Harris. And very likely, I strongly doubt Pete would run, but I could see like the potential scenario where he runs solely to try and become Kamala's VP. So who knows? But I think those are the voices. I think you've seen some AOC, but I think she's largely squashed those rumors. I think she at one point in a recent interview in the past 2 weeks said something along the lines of, it's more likely I don't run for office again than I run for a higher office. I've seen progressives talk her up, but I just don't think that'll happen. You've certainly had Nina Turner be a name that's floated among the left, but she would probably be like a People's Party candidate and probably would not do all that hot. I think people overestimate how much people have an affinity for her.
What's the People's Party?
They were a movement, deciding on whether they wanted to form an official third party, and they've finally done so because they had a convention last summer.
Yeah, no, I knew about the convention. I just didn't know what it was.
Green Party.
Wasn't it? Didn't they have people like Marianne Williamson and Tulsi Gabbard and Jimmy Dore speak?
Not Tulsi, but yes, the other ones you just listed there.
I could see Tulsi Gabbard being sort of the front of a new third, like a left.
I don't see that. Party. I just see her becoming an independent and potentially running for governor. But back to the essential point, though, I think you're going to end up with a primary, likely either one-on-one of Yang v. Kamala, or potentially a three-way race that involves, someone like Pete Buttigieg as well in there. And I think there's also a strong possibility, and not a lot of people are putting it out there, but I think Joe Biden could run for re-election. I strongly believe that, and if he does, I think no one runs against him, really. So I could totally see it. Like, they've been floating these rumors of like Trump gearing up for a 2024 run, and if Trump actually does it, I think Joe Biden will stay for round 2.
Again, this is all kind of, we can't really make any real prediction because we don't know what it will be like in 4 years.
True.
It could be a lot worse or a lot better, depending. That would definitely. My thing is that I'm afraid that it might turn into a Nikki Haley versus Kamala Harris. If that's the case,
fucking girl power, am I right?
Oh yes, it's International Men's Day. We can't respect women on this day though.
Is it actually International Men's Day?
Yes,
Is Twitter upset?
kind of. But anyway, but if the choice becomes Harris or Haley, my choice is
Third party.
no. My
Oh.
choice is move back to the move.
Ron Paul monarchy or Ronarchy?
Oh, yeah, the Hoppian dream.
The Hoppian dream. I'm not a Hoppian, but
Yeah.
still a Ronarchy.
What else was there to talk about?
What about just to throw an idea?
I was actually going to mention something that in 2021, Virginia will have their state legislative elections and their governor elections. So
I don't think Northam's going to make it.
He can't because they have only a single term for Virginia governor.
Oh no, we do. Yeah, that's right. Oh, I totally just doxed myself.
yeah, well, I'm from Virginia too, so I'm just going to dox myself there.
And you know, while we're at it, I'm in Florida, so for 2022 we have a governor's race, and Marco Rubio would be up for re-election. To my knowledge, he is not yet officially filed for re-election. I need to double check on that.
I'm sorry about the fact that you have to live in Florida. My condolences.
You know, it's not as bad as you think. It's not as bad as you think.
I lived in South Florida at one point. I hated it. Boca
Raton. You hated it?
Oh.
I'm actually from Miami.
Oh, okay.
So like I don't blame you. If you're talking about like Miami-Dade County, like the traffic is horrendous. If it's like Broward County, okay, the traffic's like a little better.
I was closer to Broward. I liked Atlantic Avenue and Delray, but that was about it.
Yeah, that's definitely a cool place.
But it's a place where I'd go for like a 3-day vacation, but I would not want to live there.
Yeah, like you know, honestly, in Florida, if you're gonna live in Florida, it should be like either Tampa Bay or Jacksonville, Florida.
Orlando's okay.
Orlando's okay too. Yeah.
I just don't like. I'm not a fan of South Florida.
I don't blame you. I really don't blame you. It's
I was going to bring up that the Virginia legislative election is only really important to me because that's like the first time I'll cast votes, and you just put your democracy in my hands.
Oh no! Yep. So that means you'll be you'll be turning voting age next year. Yeah. Is that correct?
Yeah, and you're leaving your democracy up to a Hungarian.
Well, you know what? We'll see what happens there, and my response is we'll get revenge in Florida by taking the governorship, and we'll be defeating Marco Rubio. So there you go.
Yeah, I want to kind of hope that we do elect a Republican because we've had like 2 Republicans in like for a long time. So that's kind of why I'm hoping that we do get a Republican governor. I just don't know who are the big ones that are running. Like, I think Riggleman is actually one of the choices, but
Riggleman's not that bad.
Yeah. Gross. It depends.
And then I also liked Freitas.
Yeah,
but he was he was like a sort of more of a Rand Paulish type, I think.
But it also depends on who the Democrats run, because I imagine if they run Lee Carter, we could actually have a chance.
I could actually see that, because Virginia is still a southern state, and even so, they'll probably say no to socialists statewide.
Yeah. No, so I loved Joe Manchin, his response to regardless of what you think of him and what you think of AOC, his response to AOC was pretty funny. It was like, defund the police, my ass. Or no, he said my butt. He said my butt.
Defund my butt.
Yeah. Like, defund my butt. Yeah.
There's actually an excellent article from Slate magazine about defund the police. I think it's definitely worth a read, where basically they did polling on defund the police, and they found that for voters overall, it was a detrimental slogan. When they described what
Yep.
defund the police was, okay, that's popular. Okay, that's rational.
They should have just done reform the police.
Well, the thing is, though,
Burden the police.
Privatize the police, guys.
I don't know about that.
McPolice.
Oh, just the McPolice.
No, I'm for a form of privatization of law enforcement, but I'm not in the same way ANCAPs are. So.
See, look, I try not to get too much into policy, or else we'd walk down into a rabbit hole that would never end.
Yeah, which is why I didn't elaborate.
Yeah. Yes, just a libertarian, a populist, and two progressives. What could go wrong? So again, when it comes to the House election, I want to bring this up again, because I just remembered that's something I want to bring up. I could see, in a best case scenario for Republicans, maybe if they run like very moderate Republicans, you could see them flipping like very Democrat districts potentially. Like you could potentially see what's his name in like 2008, I believe it was like Joseph Chow. He was like something like that. He was a very moderate Republican who actually won Louisiana's 2nd district, which is like the bluest of the blue districts. So maybe you could see that potentially.
Yeah, I think 2022 is definitely going to be full of surprises because this year, the Democrats overall, they hit the phones, they went online, whereas, and this is what I've been hearing, all over, is that the Republicans were the ones out knocking on doors. Democrats were not overall. So that actually gave them a huge advantage in terms of getting the turnout for Trump voters. But in a 2022 election, well, Trump's not on the ballot, so that Trump factor is not going to be there. And then I keep wondering is how hard are Democrats going to fight, when they have a COVID-19 vaccine and going out to knock on doors.
I have a question though, for Grayson, because of course I don't want to. You're the one who's leading the conversation or whatever. Yeah. But if you're thinking about, if you're looking for something to talk about, I have a suggestion.
Oh, you can suggest anything.
Trump TV.
Oh yeah.
He's thinking of. I'm pretty he doesn't have the fund because Trump's not really a billionaire. He doesn't have the funds to start his own network. So what he's going to do, at least from what I've heard, he might buy Newsmax and rebrand it Trump TV, either Newsmax or One American News. He's probably going to be Newsmax though, but honestly, I think that's where Trump belongs because I fucking hate him as a person and a president, but I adore him as an entertainer.
Yeah, I mean, The Apprentice.
No, I just think he's a funny guy. Terrible person, but hilarious.
Yeah, when it comes to entertainment,
so entertaining.
Yeah, he does that.
He is entertaining. Even people like progressives like Kyle Kalinske and Jimmy Dore think he's hilarious.
One thing I also want to bring up is, what do you think the possibility of ticket splitting being a thing in 2022 with the House and Senate? Because I know in this election there was some ticket splitting with House Republicans and Trump, and where I've been to, I've actually seen some Trump Warner signs. So
I don't see it happening.
Yeah.
That was me. I voted Warner. But I voted for the Republican for the House.
Yeah.
Because Warner's more of a blue dog.
Yeah, well, I think he's fine.
I like Kane too.
Yeah, I don't know much. I don't know about Kane.
He's okay. I voted for him. Honestly, I think a lot of it is name recognition. That might sound cynical of me, but I really do think that a lot of that's really one of the reasons Trump got elected, because he's been on people's TVs for years people felt comfortable because they knew him. It was familiarity, and then also because Hillary, of course, did not campaign in the Rust Belt because she thought she had it in the bag because she's an elitist hack. But
Fair enough.
and then basically it was the and then CNN gave him $6 million of free advertisement.
Yeah.
CNN got Trump elected in the end.
I think the my thing about the Republican Party, we should just return to Coolidge.
I like Coolidge.
Yeah, when we won
And the Democratic Party should return to Grover Cleveland.
yes, it's like the Cleveland versus Coolidge.
I'm sure our friends here disagree, but
Yeah.
they probably want to.
I think John and I would prefer the Democrats go all the way back to LBJ.
I was thinking an FDR party and an Eisenhower party.
Oh, except I guess we're going to be a little nicer to the Japanese in the new FDR party, because the old one was kind of
and a little less racist than LBJ.
Yeah.
Same thing goes with FDR and the New Deal. It was a little bit racy in who got the work program jobs. A lot of white people got help. A lot of black people didn't.
But you can also still make the argument, like as somebody who, as a historian, I don't want to say I tend to forgive people, or I tend to forgive shitty stuff that happened in the past, but I can at least see it through their perspective. Like I don't think we should judge history through our modern, like everyone says they would have marched in the civil rights movement, but how do we know?
Yeah, I don't want to get wet.
That was kind of funny. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, polling shows that in 1961, a lot of the measures that was being done, like the Freedom Riders Initiative, wasn't popular. It took until I think it was 64, and a lot of effort from JFK to kind of sway the nation.
And it took the Industrial Revolution to occur before slavery became exceptionally popular, because a lot of people saw it as a necessary evil because slavery was fundamentally about energy. And then the Industrial Revolution comes around, and then it completely makes slavery, it just denecessitates slavery as a source of energy because you have all these better, these more effective ways. And then slavery became a net drain on the economy. And then it was much more efficient and practical to pay wages. And so then a lot of people came around and they were like, oh crap, okay, yeah, this is just a moral evil and practically stupid. And that led to a major spike in the abolition movement in the 1840s.
Well, I will say it is almost 9:30 now, and I'm pretty sure our two friends want to leave. Hopefully, maybe they would want to, if Politicrat wants you to, maybe you could really get into the political pigpen.
Yeah, I'd love to have you guys on sometime.
Sure, that'd be great. And Grayson, thank you for having us on.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Grayson.
Yeah, I'll end this now, actually.